Hello, hello. We are back. Hey guys, hope everybody is doing well. I am going to start off by quickly saying I'm super excited to do today's session because, as most people know, security not my area. You never think, oh, security and stuff. Even though I've got a funky shirt on about it, I find your lack of security disturbing. This shirt I've had in the wardrobe for so long, and I've finally got an excuse to wear it on Twitch, so I'm very happy. So we're going to be talking about WAF today, which I'm super excited. But before we get started, John, how's your day going?
I mean, so far so good. Just happy to be on the show, and happy to be talking about a little bit of security today.
Love it. And Latha, where do we find you? Where are you based?
I'm based out in Amsterdam.
Oh, lovely. Oh,
Beautiful.
nice. Yeah, gorgeous.
It's a beautiful city indeed, yeah.
That's great. I've only been once, but I feel like it's on my list. Me and my friends are going to try and go. I've only been for work, and I was literally there for like 24 hours, which happens a lot of the time. So yeah, more sites to see. Awesome. Okay, well, let's get into it. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch, and I'm a senior optimization architect advocate in the Optics team, helping you guys save money. John?
Yeah, and I'm John Massey. I work alongside Steph on the optics team as a principal optimization solutions architect. And Latha, you want to give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi all, I'm Latha. I'm a technical account manager at AWS and I'm based out in Amsterdam. And I'm also a subject matter expert from the edge services of cloud, and that I cover the perimeter protection of AWS services. So, yep, here to share some knowledge I have around that area, and I'm very much excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and we, like I said, we are super excited to have you. And the fact that you do this stuff, you're a TAM, so you're in there in the weeds with customers, you're an expert. And you came to me with this, which is I also love. So, as a general shout out, as always, any customers watching, any Amazon people watching, if you have an optimization story you want to come and share on the show, this has happened quite a few times now. Email us at costoptimization@amazon.com and you can come on and tell your story. So just two housekeeping things before we go into our session. Number one, as always, we are now going to be having a summary at the end of every episode. So if you want the TLDR, you can check out the summary at the end of the episode that Richard writes. And it's always fun. I don't know what he's going to write, so I have to read that out. So that's always going to be exciting. And second thing, next week, we are moving to be an hour show. So we're going to start at the time we would normally end. So that's 4 o'clock GMT, 11 o'clock EST, 8 o'clock PST, got the time differences. And then we're going to be going for an hour. We're going to be having different types of sessions, different types of multiple parts. So make sure to note in your diary next week. The time is going to change. Drop us a question in the chat if you have any. Someone's even asked a quick question. Is it possible to do AWS unoptimized? I mean, that's not our goal. We're trying to optimize all the time. So people do sometimes leave some money on the table, and that is what we're going to showcase today. But yeah, let's move that conversation onto our topic, which is.
I was going to say though, Steph. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a great question for today's show. We've been talking a lot on the team for folks that were watching reInvent. Just now I know we're in mid-February, so 2 months back. If you watched Warner Vogel's keynote talk about the frugal architect, one of the key callouts there that I think is very fitting for today's conversation is that architecting is always a series of trade-offs, right? So we're talking about optimizing for cost. Sometimes we've got more security considerations. How do we kind of balance and kind of handle all of those trade-offs? So just kind of wanted to weave that one in, as it's been a big topic of conversation lately, and I think that's a great question, kind of a great call out around level of optimization.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's get into the WAF side of it. So enlighten us and remind me, because I just did my SAA exam, but it's already gone out of my head. So what is WAF? What does it stand for? Give us some background.
Yeah, sure. So, at a very high level, AWS WAF, it stands for Web Application Firewall, right? As the name itself tells, it protects our web applications, that is like sitting behind maybe your CloudFront or application load balancers and resources like that, from common web exploits, maybe such as SQL injection attacks or cross-site scripting or bad bots or even fraudulent activities and things like that. Yeah, that's a very high level. Yeah, about what is WAF.
And Latha, maybe a question there too for folks. Like when we're talking about web applications, we're talking about APIs as well as traditional kind of web apps and web services written through a browser. Both of those, is that?
Yes, actually, WAF supports both APIs, and you're right, APIs could also like sit behind API gateways, and yes, WAF supports both.
Cool. So yeah, everything we got that's web facing, folks can
Yes,
take advantage of it. Cool.
that's right.
Nice. And so I know there's a diagram that I can maybe spin up on this screen now. Do you want to run into a bit how it works, like logistics wise?
Yes, of course. So that was just what WAF is about, right? And how does it actually work? So WAF itself has a construct in what we call as Web ACL, Web Access Control List. And within Web ACL, we configure number of rules through which we strategize our defense to protect our web applications, which is potentially vulnerable to web exploit whatsoever is there out on the internet. And each of these rules, like we configure these rules one after the other, and even we combine a certain set of rules to form rule groups. And when we associate this web ACL to protect our resources, all the requests that is hitting our protected resource will be evaluated by our web ACLs one after the other, rule by rule, one after the other. And when a condition is met in a particular rule, it will perform the action that we define for that particular rule. Maybe, for example, we identify a request to be a legit request. We know that the request needs to be passed to our backend application. So we might define the action to allow. Okay, if the request has these kind of characteristics, we allow the request to our backend server. Similarly, some request might be identified to be malicious by one of these rules. For those characteristics, maybe like we define the action to block such kind of request. So when this action such as like allow or block have been performed, the request wouldn't be executed by further rules in that particular web ACL. If not, it will still continue to be executed by the rules which is written after those particular rules. And not to forget, there are like other rule actions as well, such as WAF provides us the capability to pose our end users with things like captcha puzzles, so that they are able to identify themselves as human users, or even silent challenges, so that the end client is able to identify itself to be a web browser and not a bot. For such kind of actions, yeah, if the end user is able to successfully complete the challenge, those requests will pass through further rules. But if they're not able to successfully solve those challenges, the rules will block those requests at that particular point. So just to summarize, there are a set of rules that we define in the web ACL to strategize our defense mechanism. And if that particular rule could either allow the request to the backend server or block it, identifying it to be malicious. If not, like continue to execute all the rules which is there further written after that particular rule.
Makes sense. I've got a refresher now. I remember this came up in the exam, so I'm good. Awesome. So okay, let's move into how do we look at the world of FinOps, the world of cost optimization. So just to touch on quickly, how is WAF priced?
That's a very good question, because like everything like comes out of that topic, right? And when we see WAF through the cost optimization lens, it all boils down to rightly understand the pricing structure of WAF. So I mentioned that there are rule groups that we can combine to combine number of rules to define certain strategies. And like there are certain rule groups which AWS provides. It creates and maintains such rule groups to provide protection against common web exploits, maybe SQL injection and things like that. And customers could just enable and use that, right? So there are certain set of managed rule groups which are free, and there are certain sets which are not. So to discuss, to provide some clarity about pricing, I would say there are like two models. One would be the basic model, which will actually consist of the pricing for your web ACL, the number of rules or rule groups within that web ACL, and even the amount of requests that has been like processed by the web ACL. That is like the basic model, I would say. And the rules or rule groups that you define, it is like the rule groups which comes under this are like mostly the AWS, what we call as free managed rule groups. There's also this another model where AWS customers could utilize the advanced threat detection mechanisms of AWS to fight against bot attacks or fraudulent attacks, which is like much more sophisticated, or the capture puzzles or challenge actions. Those come with additional pricing, and that will depend on the volume of requests that it is processing apart from the basic model of WAF charge that I mentioned earlier.
Right.
So, lot of functionality there, right, Latha, with the WAF. You mentioned a couple things that I just kind of wanted to click into a little bit more. So you mentioned like the managed rules, where some of those are free, some of those are paid. And would it be fair to say to folks, maybe start by enabling those free rules? That's a good place to start, and then you can layer on the paid rules as kind of a sort of a cost control strategy there.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's how like we need to strategize the ordering of the rules and rule groups within a web ACL, so that by the time the volume of requests that would hit this additional paid rule groups such as bot control or fraud control, we limit that volume of requests that is hitting those rules. So general guidance is like make use of all these your free managed rule groups or your own custom rules that you would want to write, or like allow your known good traffic or block the traffic which you already know to be bad. And later on, so that you filter the traffic, and you let the filter traffic only to pass through or being evaluated by your bot control or fraud control. That's right.
Okay. All right. Okay. That makes sense. So it's kind of the ordering isn't just like a security impact, it is a cost impact to it as well. So
Yeah.
if you're watching and you're thinking, I need to go and optimize some security, I've seen this spend, go and go and review the rule order and see if it's actually valid. So we've got a couple of questions, a couple of shout outs I'm gonna do just for Rob. WAF is fun to say. It's just like patching someone from Batman. Rob always bringing the fun. Which is funny. We've also had a second question, Rob. RE pricing. Do you still get WAF credits with savings bundles? He means as a typo in his things. Do you still get that?
Yes, it is still there. The CloudFront Savings Bundle still has the credits for WAF.
Nice, awesome. And then we have one more question from Meredith. Where's it gone? What are some things you can use for the conditions? So she also put in a different comment, I assume obvious things like IP ranges, but what, for an example, for a public application, I don't want to limit where people can access it from and wants to protect things. So like, could you give us another good example of what kind of conditions you can use in WAF?
Yep. It definitely depends on what kind of cyber attacks that you are aiming to defend against. So, say for example, you want to defend against things like DDoS attacks. Then you could put a rate limit rule saying like your application could accept so much of threshold of traffic. Say, for example, 2,000, like just for an example, 2,000 requests per 5-minute period. Using such kind of conditions would actually limit the volume of requests and hence protect your application from DDoS attacks. That's one of the example, and there are lot many things that we can do. For example, SQL injection attacks. You could use AWS managed rule group for this. You could just enable the SQL injection one and already have defense for such kind of attacks. So there are lot already so many managed rule groups that customers could just enable by using the AWS managed rule groups and already have protection for most of the common web exploits which is already present on the internet today.
Cool. All right. Oh, go on, John. Sorry.
Now I have a question. I'm a little curious too. So Latha, you're talking to you brought up that piece there around controlling the number of requests that's kind of coming in. So we're talking about WAF requests, volume. That's a cost component that we have here to be aware of. Another side of this, and just because that question kind of came up around CloudFront, I'm curious. If we're looking at total request volume that we have for the application, are there architecture things that folks should be considerate of that can maybe help reduce that overall amount of inbound requests that even hit the WAF? Would CloudFront be something that should be part of the architecture that might be another component of kind of the overall design?
Actually, there is a white paper across this, to have this best practice around rightly architecting CloudFront, specifically our web applications itself, and it's we recommend very much to place CloudFront to protect your web applications, and hence actually CloudFront actually there are certain characteristics or features within CloudFront wherein we could define or control the request flowing from certain geographic areas. You could filter the request. Maybe your business is running only in a specific country, or so you accept the request originating only from specific country. So those kind of features you could leverage from CloudFront. But apart from that, additional benefit of using CloudFront is when you attach WAF with CloudFront, the protection is at the perimeter of your web application. So as much as this traffic will be avoided reaching out to the inner layers of your architecture, you're actually avoiding that much overwhelming of additional consumption of your inner resources that's there in your architecture. So that's a very big advantage that you place CloudFront and attach a WAF to it.
Got it. So have those multiple layers that are in place there, and kind of create those different barriers of defense for the app.
That's right. That's right.
You kind of, even in a bigger picture, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're thinking if you protect it at an early layer, then like you just said, it stops getting to your later layer. So if you're using something where resources will be spun up based on usage, if things are not supposed to be getting through, then it's obviously going to optimize because you're not wasting money on resources deploying. Okay, awesome. I love the kind of bigger picture concept. I'm just going to segue us to a quick poll. So guys in the chat, need you to reply. Who looks at security cost as a spend? I'm intrigued to learn about how people are. So 1 for yes, 2 for no. Are you regularly checking your Cost Explorer or your Care or your Kudos or your third party, no shit to third party, for how much you're spending on security tools? So we've got a couple of yes, a couple of no's, because I feel like it's one of those services like CloudWatch maybe or CloudTrail people don't always look at a lot. So we've got a couple. I know people are. Every time I get my audience wrong, guys. You guys are always better than I anticipate. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have doubt. But yeah, good. People are looking at it regularly, which is awesome. Okay, cool. So let's get into some optimization bits. Let me take the poll down. So if we want to move into diving into a little bit more of how to optimize, we've already mentioned kind of ordering those rules to make sure that you're not going to be wasting, or not wasting money, but not utilizing more rules and paying for them when you don't need them. Are there any other ways that we could optimize with it?
Yes, apart from having ordering the rules correctly, there are like other things that customers could consider. Like I mentioned, challenge actions, right? Uh, Customers could actually leverage AWS JavaScript SDKs to implement challenge actions. So when they do that, it is free of cost, and that in today's pricing, challenges are costed additionally when they use from WAF. That's one of the things where customers could control cost. And another one is like both is challenge and capture, right? When we configure it, we define what we call as immunity time. Yeah, when the end user successfully solve this kind of challenge, a token would be generated, which will have kind of what we call as fingerprint, so that it will have the end user's web browser information to identify it to be a legit web browser and not being a bot. So when they configure that, there is something that we define as an immunity time. After a certain point of time, like it asks again to solve such kind of challenge to still re-verify if it is still a legit user. If this time is not configured properly, like we might end up overwhelming or overusing our capture and challenge kind of actions, which is an additional cost, right? So having that immunity time configured optimally and as per your business requirement would actually definitely help have cost under control, I would say.
So Latha, that you're saying that there's an SDK for WAF where basically folks can kind of integrate that in directly at the app level and only present those challenges and captchas, for kind of unauthenticated, use cases where they haven't gotten the token, and
That's right.
cut down on the amount of volume. That is really cool. Very cool. Very cool.
That's an added advantage for that is there are a couple of things that you will do on your web application, right? And when you add this along with that, it would also like reduce the latency that is involved when you actually decouple these both
Oh,
as a
very
different
cool.
functionalities. Yeah.
I'm like, John's asking all the right questions. That's why I brought him in today. He knows he's doing well, knowing all this
I'm
stuff.
learning a lot too, Latha. This is great. There's so many features like that, and I think that that SDK feature was one that wasn't really familiar with, and it just kind of represents like that different model of like, hey, take these cool capabilities, embed them in the application. I wasn't aware of that kind of latency benefit. That is really cool and a great consideration to call out.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so is there any other? I think we've also talking about optimizing logging costs. Was that something else you wanted to touch into?
Yeah, to quickly touch upon that, of course, like we have a WAF and like we attach WAF to other services to protect them, right? And definitely we want visibility into what kind of traffic or what kind of web attacks our applications would be exposed to if we do not, or like, better strategize our defense mechanism, right? And we need logging for that. So WAF has like three destinations or different kind of logging destination. First one is the CloudWatch logs. The second one is the Kinesis data firehouse, and the third one is the S3 bucket. The optimization areas where what I want to highlight is like when customer use the Kinesis data firehouse, it's very important that they choose the buffer configuration so that they define the right amount of size and right interval time for the logs to be like to be for its to be delivered to its destination.
Right.
So if it is configured properly, yeah, it does a job at required level. And make sure you do not like overuse it or overwhelm it. At the same time, like when customers use S3 as the destination, directly using S3 would require CloudWatch when it logs to push the data to S3. But when there is like billions of requests that WAF is executing, it's always the best idea to have kind of this data firehouse pipe those logs to S3, and that would definitely save a considerable amount of charge for logging.
Awesome. Yeah, choosing the place to put your logs is a definite one we've touched on a few times. So great call out, because thinking about, again, we always want to draw awareness to where people can make those right decisions early on, so that they can kind of configure for optimization in mind. I think last question probably, John, any tips to see security costs better? Any recommendations we can find stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple of them earlier, Steph, around things like the CID dashboards and looking at tools like Cost Explorer. Always like to give a good shout out to the Kerr query library, where folks can look at some of the queries that are set up there to reconcile those different pricing dimensions that Latha was talking about. So that way I can track the amount of requests that I have coming in. I can look at these different dimensions that maybe are scaling up with changes in the workload patterns, and would then prompt me to do the things that we just talked about here, where maybe I want to use the SDK, or I want to, redefine the scope that I have set up for any of the rules that are in place, and use those to kind of balance out the amount of requests that are actually being processed by the WAF. So definitely Kerr query library, and then, Cost Explorer, always a great place to start. And then maybe one more, budgets too, always setting up a budget so you can get some alerts and notifications in case those access patterns start to change for the apps.
Love it. Always got to throw out the budget warning. Okay, great. All right. Thank you so much for going into that. I feel like John and I learned so much. I feel like we sat quietly listening more than any other episode we've done. So we were like, yeah, just like keep talking, keep telling us. Okay, last 2 bits. As a reminder, people who have joined, shout out. This is our last episode at this time frame. Just wanted to, before anybody panics. So from next week, we're going to be starting at about this time, going for an hour. So as a last poll, guys, 1 or 2, are you going to be joining? Or 3, are you going to be joining? Yes, of course. Come join us next week, and we'll be doing a longer show with different elements. We're going to be making it a little bit more fun, a little bit more silly and some stuff. But we are also going to keep our guest section. So we're always going to be having half an hour with a guest, and then the other half an hour with lots of different stuff. So yes, of course, people are coming. And yes, thank you guys. Twice for the fun. Love it. Thank you so much, everybody, coming along. Oh yeah. Rob showcasing twice on. Okay, Richard, we're ready for your summary. So Richard's going to throw up on the screen the final summary of the episodes we can run through. Latha, thank you so much for coming on. Again, we've been really enjoying learning more about this topic. Okay, as this loads.
We're happy to be here.
Okay, so turn down costs for WAF. Group rules, groups. Oh my God. Rule groups rule the roost. Get logging right to sleep like a dog. I feel like he comes up with more creative ones every single time. So thank you so much. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for Eric's already shy. A great summary. Eric loves it. As always, if you have any other follow-up questions, feel free to comment down below. If you watched all the way to the end, don't forget to like and subscribe to any channel you watch this on. And we'll be back next week to talk about pricing with Frank, who's going to be outside of AWS. So somebody else coming in. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you all next week at our longer slot. See you then. Bye.